Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the annual town meeting, this 25th of April, 2024. And I have to tell you that this meeting is being recorded for publication on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel. So if you really enjoy it, you can catch up with it again later on, or share it with other people, of course. It's a great opportunity to have the chance for members of the public, local residents, to meet up with councillors and to find out what they've been doing for the last year, and to hear about the annual report and ask any questions that you might have. We have a couple of other items of business before we get on to the report, and I'll come on to those in just a moment. So first of all, Madam Clerk, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for absence received from Town Councillors Mike Cole, Dave Lunn, Jay Lunn and Val Watts, and Town and District Councillors Jeremy Cottam and Justin Pemberton. Thank
you very much. And if I could ask you to take a look at the minutes from the annual town meeting from 23rd of March last year, and we could have confirmation that it's confirmed as accurate. So noticed that. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. All those in favour? Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so that brings us on to the presentation of community awards. Now, the sort of April-May time is a time of change and renewal on the council, and to some extent in the town. And clearly, we've been very busy at the council, doing all sorts of things on behalf of the town. But one of the things we do towards the end of the civic year is to ask for nominations for community awards, it's great to be able to recognise and highlight achievements amongst the people in the town. One thing we're doing slightly differently this year is I've been going out and presenting awards to people actually in their place of work or wherever it is they've been achieving good things for the town. So, for example, I presented one to Anne Dibble, who is a local guiding commissioner, and she has a couple of Rainbows groups. So a couple of weeks ago, I was out presenting an award to her in the middle of the field while the Rainbows were running around building dens. So somehow it seems much more in keeping. We have a couple of awards to present this evening. But the reason we don't have very many is because they've been presented in situ. So, do we have Alice? We don't have Alice. Okay, we might go back to that one. We don't have Alice yet. What we do have, I know, is a lady who this evening is receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award from Thatcham Town Council. Now, this lady has taught at Parsons Down School for almost 50 years, and she holds the record for the longest serving contracted teacher in West Berkshire. So it's quite an achievement. It's also very special to me. My children went to Parsons Down School, and this lady was certainly very well established there at the time, and they're now in their 30s. So each new generation comes along and learns so much from the teachers that we rely on and depend on so much. And we have cheated in this one. I have to confess, we did cheat slightly, because I wanted to present it at school so that the children would have the opportunity to hear a little bit about Sue's life at the school. And Catherine Bull, the head, was reading out details of the very first staff members at Parsonstown back in the 80s, and in fact of the old building at the tail end of the 70s. And to the great surprise of the children there, she revealed that this lady was one of the original staff members at the school. So she's been there right the way through with the school. And as this nomination says, she's always placed a huge value on kindness, consideration and respect in the classroom, values that she feels should stay with you for life and transfer from school into the community. So it gives me very great pleasure to present this Lifetime Achievement Award to Sue Dillon. This time I'll give you your badge as well. I've got the badge last time.
Just you stand back by the clock as well with the neck. I'm smiling, we week thinking trying for some. Nervous. Do you think he's? Thank you very much. Thank you.
As I said, we've had some wonderful nominations this year, and on Friday I was also able to present some Mayor's Awards to people and organisations who I've worked with this year and who've contributed so much to the town. And I think that's what our role is all about, or certainly one of the roles that's very important is highlighting the unsung heroes, the volunteers in the community who do so much to make the town what it is, and I think that's really important. Okay, so we'll move on to item 4, and at this point we'd like to welcome our representatives from Thames Valley Police, Matt Gow and Joe Willoughby, with their update on what's going on and how we can help them.
Coming up, Matt?
I'll get if I need to. I've got faith in you.
Good evening, everyone. I think everyone probably knows who I am. I'm Jo Willoughby. I'm the neighbourhood sergeant for Thatcham, and I'm joined by Inspector Matthew Gow, who is my inspector.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so we will take questions after the presentation, and we'll stay behind at the end. So if you've got any other questions that you want to speak to us about individually, then you can do so. So I thought it might be quite a good idea for us to talk about the team, because there's been a few changes in the last kind of couple of months. We've got Paul South, who's one of our police officers, Ali Ferry, and we've been joined by Sally Menike. I think some of you might have seen Sally around, and she's been doing some excellent work. So she joined about 2 months ago, and she's been a really, really good addition to the team. PCSO wise, we've got John and Cherie. So Cherie Cranstone and John Kaufman. If you don't know who they are, where have you been? And then Davina Wilson, she was with us for I think about 5-6 years, but she's left, and she's we've now got a vacancy for a PCSO, which we'll be looking to fill. And we are supported. People probably aren't aware that we're supported by a safeguarding team and a problem-solving team, and we've now got some mental health constables that are basically there to support us with any mental health issues within the community. So you may see some of these individuals, and they are linked to our teams and the neighbourhood teams generally across West Berkshire, but they are there primarily to support the neighbourhood policing teams with the individual roles associated with their teams. So the safeguarding team, you may have seen Alex McIntyre. He's worked with some young people in Thatcham, and he deals with exploitation concerns in relation to young people, but also antisocial behaviour. And we know that that's a little bit of an issue around Thatcham. We do tend to get some hotspots. So he works with individuals and does some early intervention in relation to the antisocial behaviour. And he does some really excellent work, and is works closely with Yacht. so the youth offending service, to try and deal with that behaviour early on so that we can get that necessary intervention in place. The problem solving team, they're made up of an officer and a half, she's a part-time officer, work on persistent and resistant antisocial behaviour and problem solving issues that might become entrenched in the community. And quite often they're involved in house closures, so where we have an issue with maybe drug use, drug dealing from a property, antisocial behaviour that's causing community impact, they will go in and they will do a closure around that property to give the community some respite. And then we've got the mental health police officers. As people are probably aware, there's an increase in mental health, and actually we've been heavily involved in dealing on the front line with mental health. So their involvement is to try and alleviate some of the pressures from the police service and help really the policing of mental health crisis. And all of these teams play a valuable role for us in terms of supporting our communities, but also supporting with their expertise other members of the neighbourhood policing team. So just talking about the strategic plan. So some of you might be aware, might not be aware, but we've got a strategic plan 2024-2025, which sets out our force priorities for the year ahead. And this is a public document. So if it's something of interest to you, it's worth having a look at. And there are 4 pillars of that strategic plan. So we've got serving victims. And I'll go through each one individually: fighting crime, building trust, and valuing our people. And I think it's really important that you understand and maybe have a look at it, because it sets out what we're trying to achieve as a police service. In terms of serving victims, we're really looking at improving victim satisfaction and ensuring victims' needs are met, improving call handling, because I know that previously when I've given these presentations, that has been something that's been mentioned about that call handling process and it being lengthy, improving instant response times, improving investigations, the quality and timeliness of those investigations, and improving TPP's management and support of vulnerable individuals, which is really, really important in terms of making sure we're supporting those individuals. And then looking at fighting crime, bringing more offenders to justice with an emphasis on charges, improving outcomes for violence against women and girls, something that I'm very much in support of, pursue and actively managing repeat offenders, maintain low levels of knife-enabled crime, so that's knife crime, you know, people who carry knives, and target and disrupt serious organised crime. The building trust, which is the next one, is developing greater understanding of public trust and confidence in Thames Valley Police, increasing visibility through patrols, improve local community engagement with consideration for seldom heard communities, which you might hear us talking about, tackling crime and antisocial behaviour through strengthening local policing, and ensuring transparent use of powers. And the next one is about valuing our people, which is just about retention and the recruitment process. But I won't go into too much depth in relation to that. And they are central, these pillars, to everything that we do, and it's something that we need to consider in our day-to-day policing. So looking at neighbourhood policing, which is obviously something I'm very passionate about. I've worked in neighbourhood policing for about 11 years now. And our priorities for this year and the year ahead are seldom heard communities, young people, retail, you might have heard that in the press around retail and our shopliftings, and social behaviour. All areas which I am also very passionate about in terms of making sure that we're doing the right thing and taking the appropriate action. So looking closely at Thatcham, and specifically around some of the things that we've been doing. So in terms of our engagement, we're always looking for engagement events. So we regularly meet with the councillors in the Broadway, but we're also going to be going out and doing that on a regular basis on Fridays, just so that we can get that engagement opportunity with the community, because we know it's market day, and that allows us to speak to people and people to ask us questions. We're also going to be having Facebook Live, which is an opportunity, it's a live event, so and people could ask us anything. So it's an opportunity for people to speak to us about and ask us questions live on Facebook, and we will then give the reply. So that's something that will be coming to Thatcham. So we're going to do it in areas across West Berkshire, and we are looking at doing one for Thatcham. And what I would say here about engagement events, we're always happy to engage, whether it's schools, you know, any kind of organisations, and you think, actually, I'd like the police to come in, you know, give a crime prevention talk, whatever it might be, we're always happy to come in and do that. So antisocial behaviour. I just want to talk about antisocial behaviour because we know that in Thatcham we do tend to get pockets of antisocial behaviour. And it does remain a challenge for the team. And quite often we do find that we get hotspots and we need to make sure that we are acting as early as we can to prevent that becoming entrenched. Because what we end up seeing, if we allow things to go unchecked, then quite often it becomes entrenched and very difficult to problem solve. So actually one of John Kaufman's responsibilities is to look weekly at our ASB cases and look where we've got repeat issues, and then we'll look at targeting them through our patrol plan. And we make sure that we have those locations, that we look at individuals who are involved in antisocial behaviour, and we do the necessary around them. In terms of our figures for antisocial behaviour from last year to this year, so we had 289 incidents of antisocial behaviour last year, and this year we've got 324. So there's been an increase of 13%. Now, when I talk about those figures, that does include crime-related antisocial behaviour. So, for example, if it's a criminal damage that's also involving antisocial behaviour, that includes crime as well. So the figures without crime, so it's 208 last year and 237 this year. So there has been a slight increase, but it's nothing I think is worrying. Personal ASB, just to give you an idea of the spread in terms of the different types. So personal, there's 30 incidents this year, communities 188, and environmental 19. And personals where it's specifically targeted at that person. So, for example, they might have people who repeatedly knock on their door, banging on their fence, maybe being abusive to them, that kind of thing. That is personal ASB. Community would be someone, I don't know, out in the being loud out at the front of their house. Maybe they're gathering in a group, smoking, drinking. So that would be, it's not aimed at anyone in particular. Another thing that I think is probably quite, I think it's a bit of an issue and certainly something that's caused some concerns is e-scooters. So I'm going to talk a little bit about e-scooters. We have run a number of e-scooters operations. You're probably not aware, but we do run them regularly over the past year. We issue warning letters. We visit parents, if obviously they're young people, and we see scooters from individuals. So we do a number of things to try and reduce that issue in terms of the demand it creates. And I know it's an annoyance, but we are working on it. But I think we do need something in addition from above us, really, in terms of the legislation. Closure orders, because we do a number of closure orders in Thatcham. You're probably unaware, but you might see some of it in the news or on Facebook. We've done several closure orders in Thatcham over the last year, targeting mainly, as I talked about, the drugs issues, so drug dealing and drug associated antisocial behaviour from properties. And we've done several of them over Thatcham, which is a really interesting process and something that I've been personally involved in, and involves going to court. So we can do it initially for 3 months and then we extend it for a 6 month. We can extend it for a 6 month period. And it can include actually excluding the tenant from their own property or the owner from their own property. So it is actually a really good piece of legislation. And shoplifting, because that's something else that has been flagged up as of interest. So actually, since the beginning of this year, we've had 36 shopliftings, which actually, in comparison to Newbury's figures, is actually quite small. And we are completing extra patrols and educating the staff around making sure that they're doing everything to report the issues, and also supporting the retailers. So there is stuff in place around the work that we're doing with shopliftings. And then in relation to violence against women and girls, obviously something that's close to my heart, we have done something called Ask Angela. Does anyone know what Ask Angela is? Okay, so it's a code phrase which indicates staff that the person requires help. So we've done a little operation around educating the staff at pubs about Ask Angela and making sure that people are aware that actually this is something that they may hear and that this person's then going to need some assistance. And I've been trained as well, and some of my colleagues have been trained in bystander training. Now, it's an excellent bit of training, and what it does is it's about, we can give it to any groups within the community, and it's about encouraging, challenging that behaviour, not necessarily directly, but there's 5 different ways that people can challenge inappropriate behaviour, crimes, etc. So that's something that we will be rolling out to different groups. So if you're interested in having that training, please let me know, because we could arrange it for a group of individuals. Just around tomorrow, we've got an engagement event in the Broadway at 10 AM. So if anyone wants to come and speak to us, we will be in the Broadway at 10 AM. And just about a new app that some of you might be aware of that can give you information about crime in your area and what's going on. And also you can contact the police through that app. It's Police UK. So have a little look at that. It's worth downloading just to have a look at what's on there for you. Any questions?
Stephanie?
Now, when you came to speak to us about the various things, you mentioned the e-scooters. You did say that you might go and talk to the retailers.
We have done that. So we've done a visit to the retailers. We do it a couple of times a year just to talk to them about, you know, selling them. And when they sell them, they need to advise that it can only be used on private land, because that's the arrangement. They shouldn't be on public, in any public spaces. Yeah. So we have done that.
Yeah, the Police and Crime Commissioner, we had him down a couple of weeks ago, and he's got this on this case, and he's met with like Halfords and a couple of the major retailers to discuss it with them, and they do some very weak sort of advertising and very weak signs. You know, there's a tiny little sign like that in their whole massive display saying, you know, you can't use these on a public road. It's getting better. We're getting the message. I think our view is trying to educate people into it. But we seized quite a lot of e-scooters and stuff. It's more the antisocial riding than the person who just doesn't realise that they weren't allowed to do it. But it is quite dangerous. And we've got more of an issue really with the electric bikes and like Deliveroo type drivers on electric bikes more than e-scooters really at the moment. But it is being brought up at a national level, and I know that our Police and Crime Commission has raised it to, he's raised it higher through the Police Chiefs Council, and it is a national issue, and I think probably they will be banned at some point. You know, other than the ones that are available to hire, I think private hire will be going.
And a licence.
You know that there are e-bikes is going the opposite way, that there's a proposal to increase the power and speed of the legal power and speed of e-bikes. You never get something, will you?
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Sorry. Have?
Got a question from some residents on Lower Way.
Yes.
It's between the council and the police, because they're going backwards and forwards like yo-yos. You've got a closure order on the road. And what's happening on one particular house driveway is the cars are going up onto the driveway, going around it and carrying on. And they're getting really fed up with it.
It's a highways issue, is it? By the sound of it.
Highways has bounced it back and said, please.
So we would never.
So somebody needs to take something for it, please.
Yeah, we'll speak afterwards, because I think it's something that it wouldn't be pleased, because we wouldn't do a temporary road closure like that. We only do emergency road closures, so that wouldn't be for us.
I did send them to highways, but highways said police.
Okay. No, yeah, it wouldn't be for us.
So,
Thank you. Joe, do you have any data on the numbers of times you've used notices to remove people in the public space protection orders?
Yeah, have a look at that.
Been around for 2 years.
Yeah, so
Has that been a useful tool? Are you actually utilising powers to remove people? I think the instance of where you need to use them going up or down? Or
So I think the very presence of it being in place quite often is a preventative measure. So quite often, because it's in place, it does adjust people's behaviour, because you've got notices obviously that it's in place within Thatcham. We have issued, I think, one this year in relation to a PSPO. We've issued far more in relation to Newbury Town Centre because of the nighttime economy. But I think it is a preventative measure because it's in place. But it has been really, I think it's been really useful in terms of reducing the antisocial behaviour since it's been in place.
Yeah, it's dropped down in Newbury as well quite a lot, but I think that's because officers know they've got that power and usually as soon as people know, look, I'm gonna, if, you know, they will warn them that if the behaviour continues, we're going to issue the notice. Usually works, so we don't tend to have to go to that last resort, especially around antisocial behaviour. You know, they'll leave the area, but it tends to be working really well and people know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dropped off. I think that's pretty common across most areas that have it now, that once they're sort of set in place, that people know that it's, you know, they can't do anything about it. There's no scooting around it and officers aren't afraid to use it. So people know that.
A quick supplementary question, because it's about these scooters as well, because the memorial ground is private land, isn't it, technically? If someone's riding electric scooter on that, is that still an offence?
No,
being antisocial behaviour because it's within the SPO?
Is it private land though? Is it a place to which the public have access? I think it's a place to which the public have access. So yes, they can't, no.
Okay. You could still enforce some powers to remove. Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Just wondering how many of the people who are using these e-scooters know that you are seizing them, whether there's a bit of work to do on making people aware that that activity is going on.
Yeah, we have done Facebook posts in relation to it. So we've done some education, we've been into schools. So there has been plenty done in relation to it. The problem you've got is that it's the retailers are selling them.
Yeah.
And we give, yeah, and we give the retailers the advice that they should be telling people this when they're selling them. So we go and do that a couple of times a year. Of course, it's not in their best interest necessarily to tell people that, so.
I was wondering, sometimes there are events in the Broadway. If the council had an event in the Broadway and put up a notice saying e-scooters have been seized in this.
Yeah, we could do. We could try that. I mean, I'm
Identifying e-scooters.
trying anything because I think it's, you know, if there's anything we can do in terms, I don't think we're ever going to completely stop it. We can't out-police it, but there might be some marginal gains we can make in terms of educating around having signs or something like that. So anything like that, I'm not considering.
They won't cut in two.
Yeah.
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 No, I think there is scope for getting the message out. I think a lot of people are still very confused about what's legal and what isn't legal. And they see behaviour that they don't approve of, but they're not necessarily sure whether it's allowed or not, you know, and I think that's a message we can.
Well, I'll see if we can get something out on
Councillor Jeffrey.
I'm not quite sure who it was that asked, and I know it's been behind me, but this is about the standoff between the police and West Berkshire highways. If you have a word afterwards,
Yeah.
but just because I'm a West Berkshire councillor and so the to highways. And I know the Thatcham West councillors are here because we will have a meeting. So,
Thank you.
anything else.
Thank you. One of the things
Sorry,
we
Tom.
get fairly frequent complaints about is parking on pavements, which causes, well, I mean, parking on pavements not itself an offence, but when it causes an obstruction,
Yes.
it did. So do you take any enforcement and do you have criteria as to what constitutes an obstruction?
I think it's terms of what's reasonable. I always think it's like the test of whether you could get a buggy through it, you know, that kind of test around, is there enough room to walk through it? We would take action, you know, I think we always try and start with that words of advice around behaviour, around their conduct, and then see where that goes. But I can't say that we would definitely take action because it might not be appropriate in those circumstances. So every case is individual.
We did do some work, didn't we, down at, where was the issues that we had, that we did a couple of operations down by the school, yeah.
Yeah, and the school, and a
Yeah,
school.
it's difficult because obviously it's not our responsibility now, but we've been devolved that obviously it's a parking issue, which isn't, you know, something that we're allowed to deal with
I
now.
thought it was if it was causing an obstruction.
It's an obstruction,
Obstruction of the highway,
Yeah.
but just not just if it's causing a
Yeah.
bottleneck,
Yeah.
basically obstruction of the highway's got to be there blocking the road. So if it's just people parking inconsiderately and you can still drive down there, unfortunately, that's not a police matter, and that's where it comes down to the local authority, and then it's and that's what we tried to arrange, didn't we, at the school, didn't we? We had lots of parking issues at the school with residents complaining about the parking, but there was no parking, you know, there's no restriction on parking, and it's just people being inconsiderate. So we did go down there and do some education with the PCSOs.
Do like polite parking letters around
Yeah.
schools, just to remind people about being courteous to residents, that kind of thing. Try and encourage it, but it is an issue around every single school in the country. I can assure you that it's not
But
Thatcham one
the
alone.
footway is also part of the highway, so if the footway is obstructed
Yeah.
in which people can't, it might be useful to have some letters around Kennet Worthy.
Yeah, we won't get involved in we will only get involved if they're blocking a road, and that's when we'll come and remove vehicles. Otherwise, it's down to the local authority, and that's the steer on most police force. So I think every police force now, because, you know, we can't even give out parking tickets anymore. So, as you well know, so it's difficult really, because then it goes to the local authority, and I don't think you get many parking wardens coming up to you.
Well, that's the problem, is that if it's parking, if they can only enforce parking restrictions, they can't enforce obstruction. I think it's a police responsibility still to obstruction of footway.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's got to be it'll have to be the roadway. It's got to be like you're blocking the complete, you know, someone's parked across a path, then we can remove a vehicle. If someone's just parking inconsiderately, unfortunately, it's a really difficult one to deal with, because we get so much of it as well. So, but usually it's trying to educate people, but we've done 4 or 5 days of action down there, haven't we, at the one location here? We seem to
get lots of
numerous reports, and we've actually asked the council to put double yellow lines and stuff, and they're like, no, you know, they have their plans and their rules and regulations, and we're saying, well, you know, this is causing a problem, but our hands are tied beyond that, unless it's so seriously. But the only thing we could do is then remove that car. But it doesn't stop it happening the next day and stuff, which is, it's really difficult. It's really frustrating, because this is the kind of things, obviously, which people care about. But yeah, it's difficult, but we'll do what we can. So, but yeah.
So thank you. Tom, I think we have one last one.
You said something about ask Alison, ask
Angela.
and I've got any, so. Is that, there's things on YouTube where you see people saying this is a signal, help, is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
So normally, if, for example, you're in a pub, maybe you're being harassed by someone and you want some intervention, you would ask for Angela, and then they would take that as a signal that you need help.
Is that a terminology that is used around the Thames Valley, or is that a Thames Valley specific one?
It's across.
Somebody will say,
It's a national campaign. It's been going a couple of years now.
I think it might be even international, but yeah.
Yeah,
I hadn't heard that.
I do all the licensing, so and I know some of our team as well have been out, but we've visited all the licensing premises, and they should all have stickers up and that kind of stuff. But mainly what we've been trying to do is educate staff.
Yeah.
Because usually the license holders and that are usually quite good. But it's more about the bar staff, the temporary bar staff at the weekends, and if you have any door staff as well, that they're aware of it, because it's mainly due to, you know, the pests and the people who won't go away, and but obviously it can be anybody can go up to a staff member and say this. It seems to be a little bit more successful.
And we've tested it. So we've tested it. So we've gone in in plain clothes and tested it with staff, so that they, you know, we can see their response and then educate. They don't understand it.
Yes, we do that with cadets. So I run the cadets as well. So we do that with cadets. We've also done it with officers in plain clothes, go in and ask, and then we will go back in and feed back to staff members if they haven't taken that up. But the same thing we do with cadets as well. We'll do test purchasing operations with cadets. So a cadet will go in with an older person, we will try to buy alcohol, but also try to buy hotel rooms. So we do that with our hotels and bars. We do that throughout West Berkshire, and it's just about educating them about, you know, what they should do if they have, you know, if you see a sort of someone coming in trying to buy cash, you know, a 50-year-old man with a, you know, 17-year-old girl, and they're trying to buy alcohol, call them and stuff, that, you know, that's when they need to intervene and call the police. So there's lots of these things that go on, which obviously we don't try to advertise too much, because the idea is, you know, we try to catch these people, so.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions for Jo and Matt?
Hang around at the end, so if you want to come and speak, that's fine.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you.
Oh, which one?
So that takes us on to the annual report, and this evening is the opportunity officially to publish it, if you like. The report's been put together by the office with contributions from all our committee chairs. And I mean, looking around the room, I think everybody's sort of probably well acquainted with the town council, so I won't go into great detail into what we do. But it's fair to say that we don't have the big ticket items like managing the roads and the schools and social care and that kind of thing. But we are very much the grassroots council for the people here in Thatcham. And I think it's important that we're the first port of call for so many people either looking for information or looking to engage in local activities. And I hope reading through the report, you'll get a feel for what goes on and the things that we focus on, and where we're trying to put more emphasis as we go forward. It's all about improving the services for the people of the town through events and other activities. We own a lot of resources throughout the town, from the halls and the playgrounds to allotments and the cemetery, and we do a lot of support for youth organisations and for other local clubs and societies and so on. I mean, in my year as mayor, I've been involved in somewhere between 120 and 130 events, I think, going on across the town. Things from getting involved signing our plastic-free charter this year, and joining the plastic-free group in the co-op to rip unnecessary packaging off groceries, and you know, things like that, which are important and show our determination to support environmental issues, which are so important to so many young people and older people, of course. But for the future, it's the thing that we're all focusing on. I think one of the key things from my year as mayor has been the injection of energy from the 10 new councillors who joined us a year ago, and came in with lots of ideas, and already we've seen some of those reach maturity, and none less than the Thatcham 10K, which Councillor Schiffer-Hart here pioneered a year ago, and it took place just a few weeks ago now, and was a huge success. And that will be a regular feature of our calendar going forward, and we're very pleased to have supported that. We have a Kids Zone event coming up for the summer, which is replacing the old Fun on the Broadway, but in a much more engaging and interesting fashion throughout the town centre, and really bringing in the local businesses. We have a number of new councillors on the town council now who run businesses in the town centre, and despite the challenges we face, like so many small towns, of bringing footfall into the town centre and making them lively and interesting places to go to, that you know, remains a challenge for us all, and we've been doing a great deal to work in the background with larger organisations and with the small traders in the town centre to see what we can do to improve those things. As part of that, as everyone will know, we've lost pharmacies, we've lost banks, and just in recent weeks, things have turned a corner there. We've got the chemists coming back in, we've got more shops coming in, and there have been some very important announcements from Newbury Building Society and indeed from Barclays Bank more recently about Newbury Building Society are setting up a financial hub where customers of other banks will be able to share the facilities, and Barclays are talking about what they've confirmed that they'll be bringing temporary facilities back into the town to coincide with the market. We can't confirm the date for that at the moment, but it is imminent, and it's very important because certainly the traders I talk to are concerned about the fact that, you know, the loss of these key facilities and also a lot of confusion going on around car parks at the moment are the kind of things that are really damaging life in the town centre. So we've been concentrating a lot on that, and we've been doing a lot of work to brighten up the town centre with bunting and blooms and new events. Travelling theatre coming back into the town, and all these things are things which will make Thatcham a place that people will want to visit in its own right, and not to be somewhere that they pass through on the A4 on the way to a larger town. So, you know, for my year as mayor, I think these things have been really important, and I do consider it a privilege to have held this role. One of the things I think is really important is the community engagement aspect of what we do, and we do everything we can to get the message out through as many channels as we can. We record all our meetings now, so that if people don't feel comfortable coming into the room, they can see what we're doing online. And you know, any suggestions for ways that we're not engaging as effectively as we could, we would certainly like to hear about it. We've recruited several new members of staff this year, and that's been a great achievement. One of those is a new community engagement manager who's been promoted from within the team, and she will be focusing very much on getting that message out to people. So that's really what I wanted to say to introduce the report. Now, there are various representatives of our committees here this evening, and I want to give everybody the opportunity to see their faces and to ask questions if they have any of them. Councillor Tom McCann is Chair of our Recreation and Amenities Committee and Vice Chair of our Finance Committee. Councillor Simon Pike is our Planning and Highways Chair, and we also have Councillor Owen Jeffrey, who's our Deputy Leader, and along with Councillor Stephanie Stevenson, our representatives on West Parks. I don't know, Tom, if you wanted to kick off with a few words about your part of the report, and just to give yourself the opportunity to be grilled.
Thank you for that introduction, Chair. Lovely to see so many members of the public here and familiar faces as well. I'm a new person to this community. I've just moved to Thatcham about a year and a half ago. And although I'm new to this community, I'm not new to local government, town council, district councils and those like. But when I got elected to the town council, I was asked for a job. What would I like to do? And I thought, well, I actually would like to get to know my community. Apart from putting leaflets through doors, and banging doors, which is a normal political thing. And recreation amenities seem to be the obvious choice for me, because you can find out what the facilities are within the town and where they are and how they're used. And that for me was important, because as somebody coming into a new community, I wanted to get a feel for how that community felt. Did it feel that was being represented? Was their views being reflected within the services provided, whether that be the allotments or the town centre for local businesses, and indeed just the quality of the play areas within the community. I think we've got 12 play areas Some have very, very good equipment on it. Some need to be enhanced, shall we say. And that's why I got involved in the Recreation and Amenities Committee. Some of the things we do allotments, we do play areas, we do community buildings. So if you get any questions about it, whether you feel happy and comfortable to stand up and ask, or you'd like to speak to me later, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. If I can't answer them straight away, I will reply to you if you require that. If you get any questions on anything recreation and amenities. Wonderful, what a wonderful audience.
You're off the hook, Phil. Okay, so next I'd like to invite Councillor Simon Pike, who's chairman of our Planning and Highways Group. There have been a lot of activities going on around the town to do with the local plan and various developments that have been discussed, and as well as answering questions. I'm sure Simon would just like to say a few words about where we are with the plan.
So, thank you. So, a lot of the Planning and Highways Committee meets every 4 weeks, and that's in order that we can provide responses to West Berkshire Council within their timescale. So we give advice to the West Berkshire Council, which determines the planning applications. We have a large part of our business involved with Velux Windows, but I'm sure you're not particularly interested in that. So I'll give you an update on the local plan, which is probably partly because it's an evolving thing, and therefore the report is not even up to the latest information. So after various stages of consultation, we reached the final stage before in the process, which is the local plan examination. So the West Berkshire Council has submitted its draft local plan to the Secretary of State, who's appointed an inspector to review it. And after various correspondence involving asking questions to the council, West Berkshire Council, and then to anybody, the examination will start in May, the first 2 days being the 8th and 9th of May. And the ones that you're probably most interested in is the ones on North East Thatcham, which is the 21st and 22nd of May. And the role of the inspector is there's two really. The first one is to confirm that the local plan is legally compliant. And the second one, if that's the case, is to make sure that it's what's called sound, which is legally defined in planning terms. And if it's not sound, to propose modifications to make it sound, if he's able to do so. So firstly, there is some question as to whether the plan is legally compliant, and it is possible that the inspector might in fact request that it's withdrawn because it isn't. I won't go into the details of why that is, but there is an arguable case that might happen. And then as far as North East Thatcham goes, you're probably aware that the original proposal 2 or 3 years ago was for 2,500 houses. That was reduced to 1,500 houses, and due to certain problems with the way that they have proposed modifications, there's the 2,500 houses have sort of got reintroduced by the back door by the council. And of course, as you would expect, the proponents of that site have put in a very long document arguing why it can support 2,500 and indeed potentially more. And proponents of other sites that weren't successful have put in representations saying why that's not the right site. So we're going into an interesting period of, I think it's 10 or 11 days. Thatcham Town Council is apart from West Berkshire Council, Thatcham Town Council is the entity that is most involved in the examination, with support and complemented by Bucklebury Council. So we've dealt with largely planning and legal matters and the consistency of policies. Bucklebury has had good fundraising, has employed consultants to look at ecological and environmental matters, and they'll be addressing that, largely complementary to what we'll be doing. As it happens, another representative who'll be active is a certain Simon Pike in an individual capacity as well. So if you've got any questions about that, I can answer basic ones. If you're asking planning terms, I'll prefer to do it afterwards. But the other thing to say there, most of it will take place at Shore House. The days for for North East Thatcham will be in the council chamber. Given the number of parties involved and their legal representatives and experts, it's unlikely that you'll be able to attend in person in the room, but they will all be live streamed. So you have the potential of 2 days of entertaining Crown Court type material. Actually, just to say there that I've been involved in 2 planning appeals, and those are dealt with on adversarial terms. So the 2 halves have representation and they cross-examine quite often quite hostile as cross-examination. The local planning is a different, where the inspector is asking questions for his benefit, and then he makes a decision. So it's a less hostile environment than some of the other planning inquiries that you might have witnessed or been involved in. Thank you. Good questions.
Any questions for Simon?
And then some months later, the inspector will write his report and we'll know what happens.
Thank you, Simon. Simon is a mine of planning information, so if you do have any queries, you're very welcome, I'm sure, to follow up via email, and he'll help you with those.
I'm not actually giving advice to people on their planning applications.
Oh, no, not personal ones. Okay, so it's at this stage, we do invite questions for our West Berks representatives as well. And Councillor Jeffries and Councillor Stevenson are well, been brave enough to put their head above the parapet as representatives of West Berks. So I don't know if we have any questions. If you want to say anything, either of you. Yes, we have one there.
Sovereign, I've been closing down, well, no, Sovereign have been selling off lots and lots of empty properties. Now, we have an awful lot of homeless sitting in the hotels, which we're paying for, of taxes, local taxes, and it's costing the council and everyone money. There's at least 200 or more in the area that they've sold off. And there's numerous ones sitting empty, and they're saying that there's problems with them, and there aren't, because the people that bought them haven't got problems. So what can the councils do about it, please?
Councillor Stevenson.
I'm going to have a go. You can have another go too. This came up. Do you mind if I turn my back on you, Mr. Mayor? This
No,
came up
I would stand by you.
on the doorstep. The chap was telling me that he knew of houses in his estate that had been left empty for 2 months, 3 months, 2 years, and then sold. So I did follow that up, and I asked Lee Dillon, who is quite a senior person within Sovereign, and he explained to me that when a tenant vacates the premises, then it's obliged to be brought up to the present standard. And there are many Sovereign houses that are not anywhere near the present standards expected of those properties. Now, if they do some sort of financial judgment about how much it will cost and how long it will take to bring that property up to the right level, then sometimes the decision has been to sell rather than carry out the works. Now, I make the point that every time they sell a house, we lose a special property. And I can assure you that this is within the radar of West Berkshire Council at the moment, and we are following up what is amounting to a growing bubble of interest in this situation. So I can assure you we're aware of it.
I raised this back in November, and there's still been more sold off. There's one on the next road to me that people were living in. If it's good enough for them to live in and it didn't need repairs, how come it's then bid on?
Because the standards, the national standards that are part of new legislation insist
Decent
on.
homes then.
Sorry,
Decent homes then.
decent home standards. Thank you, David. Well done for helping me with the decent home standards. I now sound even more gruff. So that's there is not the treasure. David, you know as much about it as I do, probably. But
Well, truthfully, Stephanie said everything that I knew, and from exactly the same source that I went and interrogated Lee, because he's not only a councillor, but he's one of the senior fonts in Sovereign, and literally he took me through that whole process of there is a legal responsibility on them that before they can re-let the house, they have to go in, check it, make sure that it ticks various boxes. If it doesn't tick those boxes, then just what Stephanie was saying, they then have to go through a process of saying, will this cost us £5,000, £10,000, £35,000 to bring it to the appropriate standard? Is it actually a better bet to sell it for a given sum of money, and then that money can be put into building a new property somewhere within it? That's the logic as I have understood it.
You said can be, not will be, but can be. That's a big difference.
We don't know it is.
Indeed,
Yeah.
can be, yes.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that I came across was Newbury House, I think it's called, that was a sovereign property. It was sorted with Sovereign to have it. They got planning permission. Lo and behold, they sold it. Come on, something's wrong.
And as Mark said, Sovereign aren't really us.
This is the problem. When I went for the very first time, what was it, 77 years ago, that I got on to what was then Newbury District Council. Newbury. When I first got on to Newbury District Council ran its own housing.
I know.
And I was able to go and see the head of housing, who's named Betty, and I could speak to her, and I could speak to her about an actual property in Alexander Road, and say X, Y, and Z is happening, and you could actually get something directly done. The housing associations, they've been set up by, I've got lost whether it was Tony Blair's or whether it was Margaret Thatcher's or whatever, but they've been set up, and literally we've got really no significant purchase on it at all. All we can purchase is that, I just mean, we've got those who grip on them. We used to even have directors on the old Sovereign board before they became top. And then that was given up by the council because they said, oh, we have such a big area, it's just, why should West Berkshire have? Well, it's because Sovereign grew out of what was the old Newbury District Council housing. And that's the history of where it came from. We now don't even have directors on the board, and we've got no purchase on that sort of thing at all, other than just moral comment and putting our sharp elbows in and moaning and perhaps moaning publicly, that sort of thing.
It's now been taken over by SNG, which is the London company. So
It's been taken over.
Sovereign. So now they've gone in with them. So now we seem to be forgetting West Berkshire and shutting all these houses down.
No.
Selling.
Simon, you know.
So in planning terms, there are a couple of things apart from the decent homes. So there's a planning policy that development should be mixed. And therefore, the traditional 70s idea of building a state of council houses is no longer consistent with planning purposes. And that means that when housing associations develop a site, that they will be selling some of them, and they also need to sell some of them in order to generate the revenue to build it in the first place. And I think also that, as well as this question about the standard of housing, that single isolated houses, which are developed for whatever reason, including council house sales, are more expensive to manage. So the problem is that we're seeing part of the issue. We can't see the overall picture, but Sovereign is a non-profit organisation with a statutory purpose. I don't see no reason as to why they're not complying with that overall obligation. But in order to do that, there are some things that they do locally, which, taken in isolation, look contrary to the overall picture.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for our West Berks colleagues? Councillor,
Can I take a liberty, Mr.?
Yes, of course, yeah.
I'm not going to ask myself a question. I just want to flag up a couple of points.
Yes.
And one of the points I want to flag up is that there'll be people in this chamber that are aware that the rain came down, the floods came up, and Crookham Hill Road was closed.
Yes.
The disrespect for the law, the disrespect for common sense, and the disrespect for the properties adjacent to Crookham Hill was really, yes, appalling. That's the right word. Deeply disappointing, very, very aggravating. One property actually did get flooded about half an inch deep. It was a property where there was a young baby, I think a few weeks old, living in the house. They had to get out until they were able to get stuff done. And even now, even though it's not rained as vigorously, the waters are still coming down from the downs. They're still coming down the River Kennet. They're still coming down from Lambourne and into the River Kennet. And of course, it can't get into the River Thames because then they are controlling how much goes into the Thames, because then it's going down and into the danger of it flooding if you go further east in Berkshire. So it is taking a very long time indeed, and there is still about 2 inches deep of water across Crookham Hill around the Avenel's cottages. And please, and people drive considerately, and that's the only word that's needed. You can go through 2-inch deep water without any great problem. But if you go through it and you do it at 30 or 40 miles an hour and you throw water up as high as the top of the Land Rover, then you can be sure that some of that water is going to end up heading towards the Avenel's cottages. Please, an appeal, please drive considerately and taking notice of the real conditions that you've got.
Thank you. Yes, I'd certainly echo that. I mean, a lot of us were flooded in 2007, but that was purely force of nature. I think if the floods that we endured had been caused by passing motorists, I'm not quite sure how I would have reacted at the time. So yeah, absolutely, it's a really important point. Thank you. So just open it out really to a general Q&A session. If anybody has any more questions, we can take them now. Otherwise, we have coffee and delicacies at the back of the room there, and we could just sort of take it offline. If we don't have any other points immediately, I'd just like to say this is my final meeting really, other than the mayor making, as mayor. Thoroughly enjoyed the term and the opportunities to get to meet people and find out about things going on in the town that I've lived in for 30 years and never realised actually happened. Has been really amazing. So a big thank you to the council, and especially to to Mel and her team of officers, to Laura, recently appointed to deputy town clerk, and the whole team, particularly Hayley, the civic officer who's supported me so well this year. And I wish my deputy Suzanne Adamantos, who rumour has it may well be taking this role in the not too distant future, and I'm sure she'll enjoy it a great deal. So thank you very much indeed for coming this evening, and do join us.